Captain Lee stared through the viewport of his ship at what used to be the biggest trading station in the galaxy. Now it was just broken metal and dead bodies floating in space. The war had ended 30 years ago, but the damage was still everywhere. Hard to believe millions of people lived here once, said Engineer Park. She was checking her computer for dangerous radiation. The numbers were finally getting better after all these years. The Great War had lasted 800 years. 3 big alien groups fought each other until they all lost. The hegemony with their fast ships and laser weapons. The Crystal Empire with their living ships made of stone and light. The Shadow Fleet with their dark ships that could disappear and appear anywhere. They fought and fought until there was almost nothing left. Most aliens thought humans had died early in the war. Earth was small and weak compared to the big empires. When the fighting started, human space got hit hard. Ships were destroyed, planets were burned, and no one heard from humans again. Everyone assumed they were gone, but Lee knew better. He was there when humanity made the hard choice. When the alien empires started their war, human leaders saw what was coming. They knew Earth could not win a fight against any of the 3 sides. So they did something smart. They ran away, not in fear, but with a plan. Human ships left their old territory and went to the edge of the galaxy where no one wanted to live. The stars were old and dim there. The planets were cold and empty. But it was safe from the war. For 300 years, humans lived quietly in those far places. They built new cities on ice planets. They learned to grow food in asteroid fields. Most important, they never stopped learning and building. While the 3 empires destroyed each other, humans were getting stronger. Commander Kim walked up to Lee with a tablet in his hands. "The space beacon here is completely broken," he said. "Ships cannot navigate safely through all this junk without it." "How long to fix it?" Lee asked. 2 weeks if we work fast," Kim replied. "But once it works, ships can travel through this area again. It will connect the inner worlds with the outer colonies for the first time since the war started." Park looked up from her computer. She was young but very smart. "The radiation is almost gone now. We can start working tomorrow." Lee nodded. This was why they came back. Not to fight or take over. They came to fix things. The war had broken everything. Trade routes that connected thousands of worlds were cut. Whole star systems were empty because of poison weapons. The few aliens still alive lived in small groups, scared and alone. They could barely talk to each other across space. The 3 empires that once ruled millions of worlds now controlled maybe a few dozen each. Their great fleets were destroyed. Their proud cities were ruins. Their people were scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. But humans had learned something important during their long hiding. They learned that building was harder than breaking, but it lasted longer. They learned that helping others made you stronger than hurting them. They learned that someone had to fix what was broken, or it would stay broken forever. So they came back. Not as conquerors like everyone expected, not with big fleets and loud demands. They came quietly, with repair ships and engineering tools. They came to work. The first human ships appeared at the edges of damaged systems 6 months ago. Small, ships that did not look dangerous, ships full of people who knew how to fix things. When aliens asked who they were, humans gave simple answers. "We are engineers. We fix what is broken." At first, the aliens were suspicious. Everyone had learned not to trust strangers during the long war. But humans did not ask for anything. They did not demand territory or payment. They just worked. They cleared space junk so ships could travel safely. They repaired broken stations so people could live in them again. They cleaned poison from dead worlds so life could grow there. Once more, word spread slowly through the surviving alien communities. There were people out there who helped instead of hurt. People who fixed instead of broke. People who asked for nothing but were happy to give everything. Lee watched his crew prepare their tools. Tomorrow they would start rebuilding the navigation beacon. It would take time and hard work, but when they finished, this part of space would be safe again. Ships would come, trade would start, people would have hope. That was what humanity brought back to the galaxy. Not weapons or threats, but hope. The hope that broken things could be fixed. The hope that enemies could become friends. The hope that even after the worst war in galactic history, Tomorrow could be better than today. The work would be long and difficult. There were thousands of systems to repair, millions of people to help, and centuries of hate to heal. But humans had learned patience during their long exile. They had learned that good work took time, but it was worth doing. As Lee prepared to sleep, he thought about Earth. His homeworld was green and beautiful again after centuries of careful work. Soon, other worlds would be beautiful too. The galaxy would live again, and this time, it would be built to last. The navigation beacon at Altair came online exactly 14 days after Captain Lee's crew started working. The moment it began sending signals, something amazing happened. A small alien cargo ship appeared at the edge of the debris field, the first one in 30 years. The ship was old and patched with different metals. It belonged to a Volani trader named Kess, who had been trying to reach the inner worlds for months. His people were running out of medicine on their colony world, but the space around Altair was too dangerous to cross. "Unknown human vessel," came Kess's nervous voice over the radio. "Did you really make this area safe?" Engineer Park smiled as she answered, "Yes, the beacon is working. Follow the green lights and you will be fine." Kess could not believe it. He had expected to find pirates or soldiers demanding payment for safe passage. Instead, he found humans who just wanted to help. His ship made it through perfectly, and he sent word back to his people immediately. Within days, news spread through the old communication networks that still worked. Humans were back, and they were fixing things. Not taking over or making demands, just fixing what was broken. Dr. Han was working on the medical ship called Restoration when the first injured aliens started arriving. She was a doctor who had spent 50 years learning about alien biology during humanity's exile. Now she finally got to use that knowledge. "Captain Yoon," she called to her commander, "we have 3 hegemony ships asking for help. Their people are sick from radiation poisoning." Captain Yoon was a calm woman who never got excited about anything. "Bring them in," she said simply. "Set up isolation units and start treatment." The hegemony ships were military vessels, but they were barely working. Their hulls were cracked, their engines were failing, and their crews were dying slowly from old radiation exposure. They had been drifting in space for weeks, looking for help. When they saw the human medical ship, they expected a trap. The hegemony had been enemies with everyone for so long they forgot what friendship looked like. But Dr. Han and her team just got to work saving lives. Lieutenant Cho was a pilot who specialized in emergency repairs. His job was to fly small repair shuttles to damaged stations and ships. He had done this work hundreds of times, but it never got boring. Every repair meant people could live safely again. Today he was flying toward a Crystal Empire mining platform that had been abandoned for 20 years. The crystals inside were still alive, but barely. They had been trapped when their power systems failed, unable to call for help or fix the damage themselves. "This is Lieutenant Cho from the Human Repair Service," he said into his radio as he approached. "I am here to fix your power system." The crystal beings were confused. They communicated through light patterns that most aliens could not understand. But Cho had learned their language during the long exile. His people had studied every alien species they could find information about. "Why do you help us?" asked the platform leader, her crystal body glowing with suspicious orange light. Cho docked his shuttle and started unloading repair equipment. "Because your power system is broken and you need it to live." It was that simple to him. He did not care about old wars or politics. He saw broken things and he fixed them. That was what humans did now. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were happening every day. Human ships appeared wherever there was damage or need. They worked quietly and efficiently, asking nothing in return. When aliens asked why humans were helping, they always got the same kind of answer. Because it needs fixing. Because you asked for help. Because no one else was doing it. The truth was more complicated, but humans kept it simple. During their 300 years of exile, they had learned important lessons. They learned that the galaxy had enough warriors and conquerors. What it needed was builders and healers. They also learned that helping others was the best way to make friends. Every alien they saved, every ship they repaired, every station they rebuilt became a voice speaking for humanity. Word spread that humans could be trusted. This was not an accident. Human leaders had planned this return very carefully. They knew they could not conquer the galaxy by force. The three empires had tried that and destroyed everything. But they could win hearts by being useful. Captain Song was in charge of building communication relays. These were special stations that let people talk across long distances in space. Before the war, there had been thousands of them connecting every world. Now most were destroyed or broken. Relay Station 47 is online, reported Officer Nam. The Outer Rim colonies can now talk to the core worlds. Song nodded with satisfaction. Each new relay meant isolated communities could find each other. Again, families separated by war could reunite. Traders could find new markets. Scientists could share knowledge. But the best part was watching what happened when different alien groups started talking again. After centuries of war, many had forgotten they used to be friends. They remembered only the fighting and the pain. Humans helped them remember the good times too. They carried messages between old friends. They arranged safe meetings on neutral ground. They showed everyone that cooperation was possible again. The galaxy was slowly waking up from its long nightmare, and humanity was helping it remember how to dream of better days. The communication relay network grew bigger every week. Captain Song stood on the bridge of her ship, watching workers install the 1,000th relay station. This one was special, because it would connect the far outer worlds with the central galaxy for the first time since the war began. "Captain," said Officer Nam, looking at his screen, "we have an incoming message from the crystal survivors in the Vega system. They want to talk to the hegemony people in the Alpha sector." Song raised her eyebrows. The Crystal Empire and the hegemony had been bitter enemies for 800 years. Even before the Great War, they had fought smaller battles over territory and resources. Now they wanted to talk to each other. "Are you sure about this?" she asked Nam. "Yes, Captain. The Crystal leader says her people are good at growing special metals that the hegemony needs for their ships. The hegemony commander says his people know how to make engines that the crystals want." Song smiled. This was exactly what humanity had hoped for. When old enemies started talking about trade instead of war, the galaxy was truly healing. "Connect them through our diplomatic channel," she told communications specialist Bayek. "Make sure both sides feel safe during the conversation." The call took 3 hours. Song listened to parts of it, using the universal translator that humans had improved. During their exile, the Crystal and Hegemony leaders were nervous at first, but they started to relax when they realized they both needed what the other had. By the end of the call, they had agreed to meet in person. But where? Neither side trusted the other enough to visit their territory. That was when Song made an offer that changed everything. "Meet at Haven Station," she said. "We built it in neutral space. No weapons allowed, but plenty of security. You can talk safely there." Haven Station was humanity's greatest achievement so far. Built in the Crossroads sector, exactly halfway between the old Empire territories, it was a place where anyone could come in peace. The station was huge, with rooms for every type of alien life and food that everyone could eat. Mediator Zhang ran the diplomatic section of Haven Station. She was a small, quiet woman who was very good at helping people solve their problems. She had studied alien psychology for decades and knew how to make enemies into friends. When the Crystal and Hegemony representatives arrived, they were both nervous. The Crystal diplomat was named Zara, and her body was made of living bluestone that changed color with her emotions. Right now, she was glowing orange with worry. The Hegemony representative was Commander Vex, a large reptilian being with green scales and sharp teeth. His people were warriors, but he was trying hard to be peaceful. His tail kept twitching, which meant he was uncomfortable. "Welcome to Haven," Zhang said, pouring tea for both visitors. "This tea is from Earth. It helps people relax and think clearly." Zara looked at the tea suspiciously. "Is it safe for my kind?" "Yes," Zhang said patiently. "We tested it with volunteers from 40 different species. It is safe for everyone." Commander Vex tried the tea first. He was surprised by how good it tasted. "This is better than anything we have had in years," he admitted. Slowly, both aliens began to relax. Jiang was very good at her job. She asked them about their families, their hobbies, anything except the war. She helped them remember that they were people first, enemies second. Your people take no territory for yourselves, Zara observed, her crystal body now glowing a curious green color. Why do you help us fix things but ask for nothing in return? Jiang set down her teacup carefully. Territory is not what the galaxy needs right now. Connection is what matters. Commander Vex studied the humans with his yellow eyes. You could have taken everything while we were weak and scattered. My people would have been easy to conquer. We could have, Jiang agreed. But then who would fix what breaks next? If we took your worlds, we would just be another empire. The galaxy has had enough empires. This was the moment when everything changed. Zara and Vex looked at each other, really looked, for the first time in the meeting. They saw not ancient enemies, but two leaders trying to help their people survive. My colonies need the metal alloys your people grow, Vex said quietly. And our crystal ships need the quantum engines your scientists invented, Zara replied. Within 2 hours, they had worked out a trade agreement. The crystals would grow ship hull materials for the hegemony. The hegemony would build faster engines for crystal vessels. Both sides would share their medical knowledge to help heal the sick and injured. But the real breakthrough came at the end of the meeting. Zara's body was now glowing bright gold, which meant she was happy and excited. There is something else, she said. We have young people from both our groups working together on a project to rebuild the old Academy station. They ignore the old hatred between our kinds. They just want to learn and build together. Vex's tail stopped twitching for the first time all day. My son is part of that group. He says the crystal younglings are very smart and good workers. Jiang smiled. This was how peace really happened. Not with big treaties signed by leaders, but with young people working together and old people learning to see past their fear. The galaxy was not just getting repaired. It was learning to trust again. The restoration accords were signed aboard the massive human hospital ship called Healing Light. Dr. Moon had spent 6 months preparing for this moment, studying the minds and hearts of every species that would be there. She knew that fixing broken bodies was easier than fixing broken spirits. Trauma runs very deep, she explained to negotiator Sio as they watched alien delegates arrive. 800 years of war does not heal in a day or even a year. These people have been taught to hate each other since they were children. The hospital ship was the size of a small city, with medical bays for every type of alien life. But today, its main purpose was to host the most important peace meeting in galactic history. Representatives from all 3 former empires were coming, together to sign agreements that would end the hatred forever. Dr. Moon had learned that the key to healing old wounds was not to ignore them, but to understand them. Each species carried different scars from the war. The hegemony remembered their burning cities. The crystals remembered their shattered hive minds. The Shadow Fleet remembered their people dying in the cold of space. The hegemony delegation is asking for extra security, reported Captain Ryu from the bridge. They are still afraid the crystals will attack them. And the crystal delegation wants to bring their own food, added Communications Officer Kim. They think the Shadow Fleet might try to poison them. SEO sighed. After 8 centuries of war, everyone expects betrayal. How do we make them trust each other? Dr. Moon had an idea, but it was risky. We do not make them trust each other. We show them that they already do, in small ways. 3 days before the signing ceremony, something unexpected happened. A distress call came from the Kepler system. A space station full of war orphans was losing power and life support. The children aboard were from all 3 empires, but they were too young to remember the old hatreds. Engineer Kang was leading the repair mission when he made a discovery that changed everything. Dr. Moon, he called over the radio. You need to see this. When Dr. Moon arrived at the station, she found something beautiful. The children from different species were working together to keep their home running. Hegemony youngsters were sharing their technical skills. Crystal children were growing food in the hydroponic gardens. Shadow Fleet kids were maintaining the power systems. They do not see enemies, whispered Kang. They just see friends who need help. The adult delegates were scheduled to arrive the next day, but Dr. Moon had a better idea. Bring the peace talks here, she told negotiator Sio. Let the leaders see what their children have built together. When the adult aliens arrived at the station, they were shocked. Crystal Elder Zephon watched a hegemony child teaching a crystal youngling how to repair a computer. Her crystalline features showed confusion and wonder. I do not understand, she said to Dr. Moon. How can they work together so easily? Our peoples have been enemies for 1,000 years. Dr. Moon pointed to a group of children playing a game together. They were not alive during the war. To them, the other children are just friends who happen to look different. Former Shadow Admiral Vortex was watching his own people's children sharing their lunch with hegemony and crystal youngsters. His dark features showed emotions he had not felt in decades. My daughter died in the war, he said quietly. She was the same age as these children. I spent 50 years hating everyone who was not Shadowfleet because of that pain. And now? Asked negotiator Sio gently. Vortex watched a shadow child help a injured hegemony youngling to the medical bay. Now I see that hatred only makes more orphans. These children have lost their parents too, but they choose to help each other instead of hurt each other. The real breakthrough came when the children asked if they could help with the peace talks. A young hegemony girl named Kira stood up in front of all the adult delegates. We do not understand why you fight, she said in her small voice. We are different on the outside, but we all want the same things. We want to be safe. We want to learn. We want to have families. We want to build things instead of breaking them. A crystal child named Zen added, when the power went out, we did not ask what species everyone was before we helped. We just helped because it was the right thing to do. The adult delegates sat in silence, looking at their children and grandchildren. These young ones had grown up in a broken galaxy, but they were not broken themselves. They were whole and hopeful and wise in ways their elders had forgotten. Elder Zephon stood up slowly. Perhaps, she said, we can learn from our young ones. Perhaps we can choose to be different than our past. Admiral Vortex nodded. The next generation does not carry our scars. Maybe that is humanity's greatest gift to us. They showed us that we can choose to heal instead of hurt. The Restoration Accords were signed that evening, but not in the formal way originally planned. Instead, the adult delegates sat in a circle with the children, sharing stories and food. The peace treaty was written in simple words that even the youngest could understand. We promise to work together, it said. We promise to help each other. We promise to remember that we are all people who want good things for our families. The galaxy's ancient wounds were finally beginning to heal. Ambassador Wu stood before the newly built Galactic Council chamber, looking out at representatives from 47 different species. The Great Hall was alive with sound she had never heard before. Dozens of languages mixing together as universal translators helped everyone understand each other. 20 years had passed since humanity returned to fix the broken galaxy. 20 years of hard work, patient diplomacy, and careful building. Now, as Wu prepared to give her speech, she could see the results of all that effort sitting before her. 20 years ago, this galaxy was dying, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Dead worlds, broken trade routes, scattered peoples who could not trust each other. Today, merchant ships travel safely between the stars. Children learn about cooperation in schools instead of hearing stories about war. Former enemies work together to build a better tomorrow. In the back of the chamber, Captain Lee watched, with pride. He was Admiral Lee now, with gray hair and wrinkles around his eyes. He had been there at the beginning, fixing that first navigation beacon at Altair. Now he was preparing for humanity's greatest journey yet. Admiral, whispered Dr. Park, now Chief Medical Officer of the entire human fleet. The long-range sensors have confirmed it. There are signs of another great war in the Andromeda galaxy. Broken ships, dead planets, the same patterns we found here. Lee nodded sadly. It seemed that war was a disease that spread from galaxy to galaxy, but now humanity knew how to cure it. The preparation for the Andromeda mission had taken 5 years. They were not just sending human ships this time. The new fleet included vessels from every species in the restored galaxy. Crystal ships that could heal themselves, hegemony vessels with the fastest engines, shadow fleet ships that could travel unseen. More importantly, they were bringing the knowledge of peace. Teams of diplomats, doctors, engineers, and teachers from dozens of worlds. They had learned how to turn enemies into friends, how to heal old wounds, how to build trust where there had been only fear. "Think they will need our help too?" asked Dr. Park, watching construction crews work on the massive exploration ship outside the station windows. Lee smiled as he saw the mixed crews working together. Humans and crystals installing the medical bay. Hegemony and Shadow Fleet engineers building the engine room. Former enemies now working as a team because they had learned that cooperation was stronger than conflict. "Probably," he said. "Someone always needs fixing." The flagship of the new fleet was called Galaxy's Hope. It was the largest ship ever built, not because it carried weapons, but because it carried everything needed to rebuild a civilization. Factories to make tools, laboratories to develop medicines, schools to teach children, and most importantly, meeting rooms where enemies could become friends. Captain Sue was chosen to command the Galaxy's Hope. She was young for such an important job, but she had grown up during the Restoration. She had learned diplomacy from watching humans work with aliens. She had learned patience from seeing how long it took to heal old wounds. "All departments report ready," said her first officer, a crystal named Harmony, whose body glowed with excited blue light. "The Andromeda mission can begin whenever you give the order." But Sue was not ready to leave yet. She wanted to hear Ambassador Wu finish her speech to the Galactic Council. "We learned something important during these 20 years, Wu was saying. "We learned that the strength to build is greater than the power to destroy. Any fool can break things with enough force, but it takes wisdom, patience, and love to put broken things back together." The chamber erupted in applause. 47 different species clapping, clicking, humming, and glowing in their own ways to show approval. The sound was chaotic but beautiful, like a symphony played by musicians who had never met but somehow knew the same song. As the applause died down, Wu made her final announcement. "Today, the Galaxy's Hope begins its journey to Andromeda. They carry with them everything we have learned about peace, cooperation, and healing. They go not as conquerors but as healers, not as rulers but as helpers." On the bridge of the Galaxy's Hope, Captain Sue gave the order to depart. The massive ship, followed by a fleet of smaller vessels, began moving toward the edge of the galaxy. The journey would take decades, but they had learned patience. As they entered hyperspace, the last transmission from the restored galaxy followed them. It came from the Galactic Council, but the voice was that of a child, one of the war orphans who had helped bring peace by showing adults how to work together. "Thank you for showing us that broken things can be fixed," the young voice said. "Thank you for teaching us that enemies can become friends. Thank you for proving that the best way to win a war is to end it with everyone happy." Admiral Lee stood on the observation deck as the Milky Way galaxy grew smaller behind them. Somewhere ahead lay Andromeda, broken and hurting, just as their galaxy had been. But now they knew the cure. Build instead of break. Help instead of hurt. Connect instead of divide. The galaxy was in good hands. Now it was time to heal another one.